Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Not a lot to talk about on today's episode. Very much the dead period of the league year in any team's offseason unless you're the Titans or Falcons, which was a huge deal. And I'm so happy as a Dolphins fan because obviously the rumors were swirling that he would be a Patriot. And I'm very happy that never happened. That would have sucked if he went to the Patriots or even the Bills or something like that. I'm so happy he's a Titan. So at least there's, I guess that's kind of Dolphins news. Thank God Julio Jones isn't a Patriot. But let's get into the news you need to know about. This comes from all these news stories for the most part come from Pro Football Rumors. And this first one does as well. This first news story, Tua Tagovailoa's hip feels 10 times better. His trainer acknowledged, and this report was via the Sun Sentinel, that his hip feels quote 10 times better. And we talked about the hip thing on last week's episode. He talked about, and Tua even talked about in his press conference how he was throwing mostly with his arm. And you need to throw with your full body. All the great quarterbacks do that. It's a huge part of mechanics. It makes everything, your arm strength stronger. It allows you to push the ball down the field more. You have more control on the ball, so you're a little bit more aggressive. So all of those things are going to, especially if his hip's feeling healthy, I'm sure that affected him because this wasn't a problem in college. He did not have that issue of pushing the ball down the field. He was one of the prettiest deep ball throwers in the entire college football. He made, and now people are like, oh, it's college football. He made tight down the field. Go back to the LSU game when he played Joe Burrow, the Clemson game in the national championship. Even though he lost both of those games, he had some really good aggressive down the field throws. And he had Jalen Waddle and Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, who were hit on plenty of deep balls. And a lot of them, some of them, especially in the SEC, were tight coverage, believe it or not. That's I think it's overblown when people say, well, he played at Alabama, and he didn't have enough, he didn't throw enough tight window throws. But when Mac Jones comes out of college, look at these tight window throws. They played in the same conference. And I know you say, oh, they're two different players, but, he had just as many tight throws as Mac Jones did. I think it's way overblown, that whole thing about Tua. And then everybody, obviously, the criticism of him not pushing the ball down the field in the NFL. Well, he did it in college. So this should, and I don't even think he's making excuses. I think all of us, and even the national media at the time, were like, maybe he shouldn't come back as soon as he did. And for whatever reason, I would love to know what the thought process was at the time of actually making the move. I hate the whole thing that, Herbert and Burrow were doing good, so they had to start Tua. I don't think that was ever a thing in that building. From everything we know how well that building has been ran since Brian got there and the culture that he's built, I doubt that affected anything. So if he was still not 100%, maybe he didn't communicate that to the staff or whatever the case may be. It is kind of weird that we're hearing all this stuff now and he still played. We heard the playbook comments. They clearly knew that he wasn't maybe as comfortable, and no rookie is with that as maybe as Fitz was, and now we're hearing he wasn't even 100% healthy at the time. I have to think if they knew that would have factored in a major way of actually playing him last year. I think it's good that he did, though. I think it is, and at the end of the day, it's good that he did. I don't think it's a bad thing that they ended up doing it. I think the experience, him going 6-3, and especially since he was on a good team, to get those wins under his belt, and he played big in big moments. So I think the whole experience was good for him, but I wonder if they knew about this. I know they knew about the playbook thing, but the health issue. And back to my earlier point, and the point I'm making is that is a huge deal. And people select players that they make excuses for. In sports, they do it all the time. Some people will make excuses for one player, other people will just ignore those excuses and say, well, it's because they just don't have the ability to do it. With Tua, you see that a lot. If you're either into his camp, and even in Dolphins fandom, a lot of people didn't like the pick initially. They're not going to be patient with Tua. They're just going to keep criticizing. And then obviously the more patient people, which is how you should treat this situation, are going to be a little bit more patient with Tua and wait for that success. You're not going to, not everybody's going to be Cam Newton or Andrew Luck the rookie season, or and have this insanely fantastic rookie year. More times than not, it does take a little bit of time. And Tua did not play that bad. A lot of that had to do with the hype, him coming into the NFL. So I think there's a lot of factors with Tua. I think people, like I said, that wanted to hate on it are going to hate on it, and the people that are actually rational about the situation or that are into his camp are going to give him more time. And I think at the very least, you have to give him that. I mean, you look at Josh Allen and some of these other quarterbacks that took a little bit more time to develop into what they are now. And I think this hip thing is a huge factor into that. And like I said, in college, he had no problem making aggressive reads. He was more mobile in college. He was a bigger dude in college. And it's not a coincidence that the hip injury changed a lot of those things. We already see, I know it's a little ridiculous, but in off-season workouts of how much bigger he looks. He looks a little bit more, like I said, he looks like he was in college. And obviously the hip factors into all of those things. So I expect we will see more aggressiveness from Tua. And he'll have more confidence in his arm strength to go downfield to make some more tight reads. And it's impressive to me because he did have some insane if you go back and look at the Chiefs game, the Cardinals, especially the Cardinals game, I mean, he made some, if it really is true, and I don't think he's exaggerating or lying about it, that his hip is that much better now than it was during the season, the throws that he was able to make despite his hip not being 100% is pretty insane. So I think with another year under his belt, the experience that he had his rookie year, him being more healthy and getting back to his normal playing body state, I think all of those things are going to factor in and obviously the team's better, him having a more successful year entering this year. His hip will feel better. He'll be more aggressive down the field. His arm strength will be better. All of those things. He'll be more mobile. He'll be bigger. I think he'll be more confident too because of that, and I think we'll see improvements for Tua. And I think people have to be more patient with him. It was a rookie season. People are acting like he's been in the league for 10 years, and the only reason people don't think he had a good rookie year is because of the hype he had from the same people that are hating on him his rookie season. The dude went 6-3. He had 11-5 were his touchdown interception ratio. I know his completion percentage numbers weren't great, but the team wasn't good either offensively for most of the time he was starting. You think about, especially in December, it was atrocious. The Chiefs game, the fact that Tua did what he did in that Chiefs game with Lynn Bowden and Mac Jones being his primary targets, and obviously Mike Gesicki, is pretty remarkable. And I don't think he gets enough credit for some of the stuff that he did with such a below-average roster when it comes to that. And he didn't have a run game. The run game didn't really start picking up till late December, mid-December. Like against the Patriots and the Raiders. Those were the best running performances that we really had, especially against the Patriots. And he didn't even have a run game for most of the year. So I just don't. It's honestly frustrating to even think about. And we have another Tua story later in the show, which we've already talked about before, but we'll get into it again. The whole Tua thing, I'm sick and tired of hearing. Like, we had to deal with this with Ryan Tannehill for his entire career in Miami. I don't want to have to deal with this again. I hate it. It's ridiculous. And hopefully Tua puts those things to bed this year. We'll see if Deshaun Watson comes into play, but if he doesn't, I'm fully confident in Tua. And especially with all the news that we're hearing now, I'm fully confident that Tua will prove a lot of people wrong. And again, if people are just more patient, everybody's so quick to judge, and especially if it fits their narrative or their opinion of a player, it's ridiculous. So I'm very, very, very excited about Tua going into his second season. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Details on the Jason McCourty situation. Brian Flores said via Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, that Jason has had some work at safety, which is good. And he also saw snaps at corner. So this, obviously, and he did. And last year, and according to the numbers, Jason played 75% of his plays at corner. So we kind of get a little bit of an insight on where Jason is probably going to be geared towards. And it looks like it's going to be some safety on corner, maybe some nickel corner. I doubt, honestly, Jackson is 33. His contract is really cheap. I think he's only guaranteed like $900,000 or something like that. I mean, this isn't like something that, we're not really. I'm excited about his role, especially if you play safety, especially on the back end of free safety. His brother's really good at it. For that matter, it's his twin brother. He's got a ton of experience in the league. He has a ton of experience in this scheme. He's played safety in this scheme with Bill Belichick. So it's nice to know that, that's kind of... And again, we knew that he would... Everybody in this scheme is versatile. So I'm sure we'll see him everywhere at some point in the season, especially if someone gets hurt. So, very happy with the signing of Jason McCourty. Adds veteran leadership, and I know... But it is a big deal from what we hear from players around the league. It's a huge deal, and obviously he comes from New England. A lot of people were worried about we lost something out with Kyle Van Noy, but we got McCourty, and he's playing a position that requires you to have a lot of experience. Brian has talked about that before, where he needs to be a quarterback of the defense. He's got all the experience in the world to do that, to get in and out of checks in the secondary. He'll be perfect for that. There will be no playing slow. He doesn't have to learn anything. So this is a perfect fit, and he still has football left in him. And we've seen plenty of times veteran corners move to safety and have a lot of success at that position. And he's got it in him. He's physical enough to do it. He's bigger than Bobby was. I think he's a better athlete, and he's got better ball skills than Bobby did. So in a lot of ways, it is an improvement in my opinion. And I think he'll play most of the games this year. I don't think we're gonna have any issues with him. And I think he will start at that position. There's a lot of safeties behind him, though. You got Holland and Brandon Jones, who are young and up-and-coming players. Eric Rowe, I would expect not to be moved at all. But both of these guys, the interesting thing is Eric and Jason are so good. They're going to be such good matchup pieces. And, again, I don't want to hate on Bobby here, but to me, Jason's a better matchup piece than Bobby was. Bobby had issues, especially if he was in one-on-one situations. His size, a lot of the time, kind of hurt him. Like, he can match up well with slot receivers, and that's the best thing he ever did for us. But if he gets on a bigger player, like a tight end or a bigger receiver, he had a lot of issues. Jason's not going to have that problem. So he's going to be a little bit more versatile in that way, where we can match him up with a lot of different people. So I'm very excited, even though he will be on the back end a little bit more. He's not going to be manned up, but when we do blitz, he will. And again, especially if Brian wants to blitz, he, across the board, has such good matchups that he can take advantage of, where his players are never going to be in a bad situation because they all have the talent to play man coverage. And every single one of these guys have had a past of playing in one-on-one coverage. So they've constructed the defense perfectly to how the scheme is ran with this amoeba defense. And McCourty is a perfect fit in that. So it's nice to hear from this new story that he's gotten work at safety. Yeah, I'm very excited about his role in this defense, and I think he is an upgrade. So, I think that's it from Pro Football Rumors. I think we're moving on from them. There's, again, not a lot to talk about here. So let's move on from that. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything here. There's no update on Melvin Ingram in case anybody's wondering. I've looked for that. Hopefully that gets done at some point. Very excited about that. Let's get into this next news story. This next news story comes from Fanside. Miami Dolphins' Raekwon Davis wants to improve his pass rushing. And this is something that he said in some of the press conferences. He said, pass rushing, this is what Davis said. He said, pass rushing, quote, pass rushing, I feel like there's a lot of stuff I could have done more. But definitely pass rushing is something I want to focus on. So this is something that I want to talk about because Omar Kelly said something very interesting in the show that he does. I think for the Sun Sentinel, right? It's on YouTube, guys. It definitely has some good insight to it. Where he said that the Dolphins want to move him to defensive end this year because they think he plays a little bit too high to be a nose tackle. And, he did play well at that position. But they think, they want a little bit more leverage there to push the pocket a little bit more in the passing game. They think his attributes can be more suited to defensive end, and they can really utilize Raekwon Davis's talents. People forget, this dude made the all-rookie team. He was the starting defensive tackle next to Derek Brown on that team. So Raekwon has always had a great amount of talent. Brian Flores was ecstatic when he picked him, and that draft is really looking good, man. Like, really good. I don't want to get off track here, but the more I think about that draft, I'm like, man, there were some good players in that draft, but and that have good. I mean, Brandon Jones is in that draft as well, and he's got a very bright future, and so does Raekwon Davis. But my point is that Omar said that they want to move him to defensive end, and this story here saying that he wants to work on his pass rushing, so that kind of leads you to think that he will play more defensive end. I'm interested to see who's going to get more work at nose tackle. We've heard maybe Christian Wilkins, maybe. Omar Kelly said that ideally the Dolphins want Wilkins and Davis at defensive end, the 3-4 front defensive ends. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, now that we have Jalen Phillips, really interesting to see how that front ends up working out. I would expect, they have Adam Butler, but I don't know if he's more of a 4-3 D tackle. He's not really a nose tackle. We'll see. He has played that before, but I don't know if he's the greatest fit for that. I think Raekwon's a little bit better. He's a little bit bigger and stronger for that role. But we'll see how the front works out. I'm excited to see Raekwon Davis play defensive end, though. He's a good athlete. He's a freak of nature. He's a little bit like Calais Campbell, the way he's built. So I'm excited to see what he can do at that position. I think it'll help our run defense, too, because of his power, his ability to move in open space. I think if we play a 3-4 front, I think it could help the run defense a lot. It's just going to be interesting to see who's going to play more nose tackle in some of those fronts. Definitely excited to see Raekwon go there and see what he can do at defensive end. Like I said, I think it'll help the run defense, but it's going to be interesting to see who they decide to put at nose tackle. If I had to guess, like I said, I think it'll be more of like, okay, Raekwon's playing nose tackle this game. Maybe Zach Sealer, Adam Butler. They got a lot of guys they can work with, so we'll see what they end up deciding. So let's move on from that. This I don't even want to talk. Honestly, I don't even want to talk about this. No, we'll save that. We'll save that news story for last. Let's go to this one. This also comes from Fansided, and he brings up a good point. Brian Miller wrote an article about how the Dolphins do not prioritize the running back position, and we talked about this before. I don't believe that from the reports that we've heard. If you actually follow the crumbs, they definitely do prioritize it. They just got unlucky. I mean, Le'Veon Bell would have been a Dolphin if they could have got their way. That he would have been traded at the trade line from the Jets to the Dolphins. But he was cut, right? So he would have been a Dolphin just signing. So they missed out on him. They wanted Najee Harris, according to a report that Chris Gurr tried to trade back up into the first round to get him. That didn't work. They tried. They thought they could sit and wait to get the Jonathan Taylor or Dobbins last year. Then obviously the Colts and even especially the Ravens who traded up to get Dobbins, that didn't end up working out. So they've tried to get running backs before. I don't think it's something that they do not. And the whole thing that New England, we've already talked about this. I'm not even going to get into it. I'm going to let this go. We already talked about the reason I bring this news story up is not to rehash all that, but to talk about how this. So he's saying the lack of prioritizing the running back position is going to hurt the Dolphins. I completely disagree with that, and here's why. I think, and even me myself, are underrating and over-exaggerating how bad the running back group is. I really do believe that. Myles Gaskin, if he never got hurt, would have been one of the league leaders in yards from scrimmage, which to me is the most important stat when it comes to running backs in this day and age. They have to affect the passing game and run game because of how pass-heavy the offenses are now because of the rules. So that's the first thing I look at running backs now is what's your yards from scrimmage? How are you affecting the game? The running backs have a unique ability to affect the game in multiple different ways, whether it's pass protection, the receiving game, and the running game. They can affect all three phases of the game, which is very unique. Miles was doing that at a very, very, very high level. And it wasn't just him getting openings. He was making a lot out of nothing a lot of the time. So I think we exaggerate how bad it is. And again, I know Myles Gaskin isn't the flashiest guy in the world, but he made a lot of big plays last year. You think about the Raiders game. He had a very clutch screen catch against the Bengals. If he gets hit there, that game would have been completely different. We would have had to punt backed up on our own goal line. I think the Bengals still had the lead at that point. It would not have been good. I think we would have still won the game. But that was a huge moment in that game. Completely turned the game. And then obviously he catches the big pass down the sideline again in the same game. In that game. And again, we wouldn't have been, we wouldn't have even, that Raiders play was obviously a great play. and a one-man effort. So he is a playmaker. I think we exaggerate how bad it is a lot of the time. Myles Gaskin's a good player. He's a starter to a little bit above starter running back who has potential, if he can continue to get better and stay healthy, that I could see him making the Pro Bowl as an alternate maybe 1 year. Or maybe he does make the Pro Bowl 1 year. I mean, James Conner made it last year just off of his name. He didn't have great numbers. So I think Gaskin can get there. And with a better offensive line and a better team and people not stacking the box as much because of the weapons that we have now, and he affects the pass game. So he is a new age running back who affects the game at a high level in two different ways. I think he'll be a Dolphin for a long time. If the Dolphins go get another guy, I think Myles Gaskin will still have a pretty good role here. Because he's carved out a really good niche. He's the James White of this offense, and I like it. Again, I think we just sometimes exaggerate and really overlook him a lot of the time. So I wanted to bring that up. I don't think that the lack of prioritizing the running back position is going to hurt the team at all. Myles Gaskin is just fine. We can make the playoffs with Myles Gaskin as your starting running back. Like I said, if he never got hurt, he would have been one of the league leaders in yards from scrimmage. And to me, and I've said this in the past, that's the most important stat for me when I look at a running back. And then you go to Ahmed, who, and I want to talk about Ahmed before we move on, who obviously adds great depth, and he's a good backup running back. I mean, he had a great game against New England. Him and Breida really carried the offense in that game. He had a great game against the Chargers when Gaskin was hurt. I think he actually started that game, and he had a very good game in that game. Kept the offense and ran for some big yards in there. Was big in the RPO game. He's a good receiving back. He's a good blocker in pass protection. I love Ahmed. He's a good player. He runs really well. He's got the best thing about him is his feet and his vision, and his balance. He's a good backup running back. I'm trying to think of who he reminds me of. Maybe like a Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, but a little bit, maybe not as much power as he had, but kind of similar running styles. Who else, man? I can't really think of it. There's someone that it's like on the tip of my tongue, and I just can't figure it out. But he does really remind me. He's a good player, man. He's not bad. He's not Kalen Ballage, okay? He's a good player. So he's a good backup running back. So again, I think we really overlook that a lot of the time. I mean, like, oh, these guys are undrafted guys or they're 7th round picks. Yeah, but they didn't play bad last year, and they have a better team this year. And I think all of those things are... And to say that it would hurt the team is ridiculous, okay? I think the only thing that this team needs to worry about is what is Tua going to do this year. That's the only thing that can get in the way of the team's success. That's it. Everything else, like the offensive line, all we got to figure out is who's playing where. The talent level's there. The defense is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the defense. Offensively, I have no issues either. It's just like, what is Tua going to do this year? The running backs are fine. They're not going to be, they're not Derrick Henry, and they're not Alvin Kamara, and they're not Christian McCaffrey, but they're good. They're not bad. So I think, like I said, and my point is that we really do exaggerate the need for a running back. To say that this could get in the way of our success is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. So I just disagree with that. And I just think it's a little bit exaggerated. Let's get on to the next news story. This comes from 24/7 Sports. We've talked about this before. And this is a report this is not even from CBS, by the way. CBS is just writing an article that a report from NBC Sports reported, and it's Mike Florio. It is not a new report. It is not another source saying it. It is from the same guy, but it's just written by CBS. It is literally quoting Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. And this is what Mike Florio had to say. He said, okay, hold on, let me find this quote, dude. We've talked about this already, but we have the exact quote here. Wait, is this thing... I just had the quote. Okay, here we go. This is what Mike had to say on PFT Live. He said, quote, Not a coach pick, not a GM pick. It was an owner's pick. Stephen Ross wanted a franchise quarterback, couldn't get him, settled on Tua. I think Brian Flores is going to put the best guy out there. If Tua is better than Fitz, he plays. If Fitz is better than Tua, he plays. Period. That's what Mike Florio had to say. First of all, and he's gone on and on about, if you guys watch NBC Sports, he's gone on and on about, this is not true. First of all, Omar Kelly, Barry Jackson, Dave Hyde, all of these beat writers have not even written about this, nor have said this is true, okay? And trust me, we would have heard it from them. Chris Greer loved Tua, and this is a report from Omar Kelly. Like, he loved Tua for 2 years. They love Alabama players. They love them. Look at our drafts, okay? They have a close connection with Nick Saban down there. So Brian definitely does, and so does Chris. I mean, when Adam was here, Adam had a close connection with Saban. So much so that he was considered for the offensive coordinator. I think did he accept the offensive coordinator job for Alabama? I'm not sure. But they were close. So then him and Chris were close at the time with Saban. That connection clearly followed through with Brian and Chris. They just love Alabama players. And again, Omar Kelly, honest to God, dude, what do you believe? Do you believe the beat writers or do you believe Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk? Okay, he's the only guy who's saying this. Now, Chris Sims has said, I've heard the same thing too. I don't believe that. I think, and again, we've heard I've read reports where, from different sources where Chris they reported that Chris loved Tua. He went to the national championship game, loved what he saw there. I don't know. You can choose to believe it or not. I don't care. I don't believe it, me personally, because of the things that I just said. There's too much evidence contradicting. I've also brought up the point that Stephen Ross really wanted Lamar Jackson, and that didn't fly when Adam Gase was there. They ended up selecting Minkah Fitzpatrick, and not trading back up into the first round to take him. The only time Stephen Ross has had a lot of influence is being overly aggressive in free agency. That's been well documented. That has been well documented. If he was still running the organization and picking people in the first round, that would have been well documented as well. And, Dave and Omar, and especially Dave, has told many stories of owners making decisions for the team or outside people making decisions for the coaches numerous times. This would be something that would be talked about a lot if it was true. To me, at this point in time, it's all speculative. Plus, the Dolphins have had someone in the organization or around the organization who's been feeding people lies a lot of the time. With some of the reports since Brian got here, I don't know who it is, but there's been a couple of them that have just been wrong. So you got to factor that in as well. And to be honest with you, it's just who you believe. I choose to believe what I believe, which is that this was a Chris Greer pick, because of all the things I just said. But you can believe what you want. I'm not. If you choose to believe that Stephen Ross told, and here's another thing I want to bring up: every analyst who was connected to the draft this year had nothing but glowing things to say, and especially when people talk about us trading for Deshaun Watson. They had nothing but glowing things to say about how the organization is ran. They said this is the best it's been ran since they've been covering the league and covering the draft. I've heard multiple people say that, okay? Whether it's in articles or NFL Network or ESPN, we've heard multiple people say that about the organization. So you know what they wouldn't say if the owner was making those decisions? And that would have been all over ESPN. Notice how it's just online in these articles and just in NFL NBC. That would have been, if that had any legs to it, and especially now in a dead period, I think that's all you would hear about all the time. And you don't. So I choose to believe this isn't true. And I will continue to think that. This is something that by the way, this was before the 2020 season started, okay, when he got this report. Okay, Tua has played an entire year. You think we would have heard about that more during that time. We didn't. So, again, I think it's ridiculous, in my opinion. I don't think it's true. If it is true, fine. I don't care. Because, at the end of the day, Tua is playing for the Dolphins or not. The reason I'm saying I don't care is what the heck are we going to do to change it at this point? What does that news really do for anybody? It does nothing. And Steven respects Brian, And you can see that, and that you can see in news stories and what he's built here in Miami. I don't think he would jeopardize that by throwing his weight around in the front office, which he didn't even do with Adam Gase. Okay, so I don't think he would do that to Chris or Brian, for that matter. So anyway, let's move on from this story. To me, it's literally the most speculative stuff in the world. I don't really care at this point. I just care what happens in the future. Right, let's get into the fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions. And I don't want to promise anything, but we have some interesting stuff that might be coming up in terms of announcements this week. I'm not promising anything, but I just look for some new stuff that I'm pretty excited that could potentially happen. This first question comes from TR3MC. He says, I'm very impressed with our front office and the picks that they made in the draft and free agency. Is there anywhere that they haven't impressed you that we should be concerned about? Coaches, playbook trades, or whatever? No. The only thing that I think that raised some concern was the offensive coordinator handling. Brian did a great job of picking his coaching staff since he's been here. Patrick Graham went on to work with the Giants as their defensive coordinator, and he was good for us. And then obviously he picked Josh Boyer to replace him, and Josh was fantastic last year. Fantastic, dude. Fantastic. He's going to get a job soon, unfortunately. He's a very good play caller. Best defensive play caller we've had, and best assistant coach we've had in a long time. Dan Rizzi was amazing, but Josh is the best defensive coordinator in terms of play caller that we've had in a very long time. So he's good at picking them. And Chan, obviously the Chan thing didn't work out. But I just would say the cycling of the offensive coordinator thing is the only thing that I'm like, wish that didn't happen. That's about it. And that's not really necessarily his fault. It just those guys didn't do a good job. Chan didn't do a good job. Chad lost the locker room. Chad O'Shea lost the locker room with his players. Nobody was listening to. Mike Gesicki literally didn't even try to hide that, where he just didn't like Chad at all, and a lot of players apparently didn't like him and the way he was teaching and stuff like that. So, it's not like he hasn't had to do it, because he's had to. So I would just say the handling of that is the only thing that really, I would say that I would watch. I wish that was that would have worked out a little bit differently. And he's definitely fixing that, because obviously one of the bigger reasons that he hired guys in-house was so they would stay longer. And I think he's definitely learning from his mistakes. Hopefully Studesville, and Godseed are the guys that we're looking for. And apparently we're going back to more... This is the reports that the run scheme and the passing scheme is going to be... The passing scheme is going to be New England, and the run scheme is going to be Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan style. That's got me excited, dude. If that's true, that's awesome. This next question comes from Leaf. He says, Do you believe Brian Flores will be our coach for years to come? This question comes from Leaf, by the way. He says, do you believe Brian will be our coach for years to come? And do you believe in Tua? Also, bonus question, what's your thoughts on the future of Miami and what steps we need to make in order to be competitive every year? Okay, so that's a good question. Yes, I do believe. I think Brian will outlive Tua. I think Brian has had such a good start to his career that if Tua failed this year, that he would still be the head coach and we would get a new quarterback. So Brian, to me, is a lock. Tua is definitely different. I think Tua, unfortunately, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but he is on a shorter leash. I don't think if things don't go well, the roster's too good. If he's like, okay, Tua didn't improve at all, he kind of hindered the team, I think you will see us move on from him quickly, because the team, you're only going to have this team for so long. So you need to kind of figure that out. If Tua's not the guy, then you need to move on. And I think they've positioned themselves to do that if Tua doesn't work out. So I think Tua definitely has a short leash on him. They're not really trying to hide that either. That's the weird thing. You can kind of put two and two together. And if Deshaun Watson becomes available, his number one destination is Miami. At least that's what we've heard. He'll probably be an Eagle the way things go in Dolphins history. Like, I don't even want to get into all that stuff, but so yeah, I think that Brian is going to be our coach for years after Tua, at least a year after Tua. Like, if things continue to get out of control. But this is the house that he built, man. I mean, he built this house, dude. He literally did. I mean, Chris was here before Brian. Brian got here and stuff started to turn around. It's not a coincidence. So Brian definitely has a longer leash than Tua does. In terms of stuff that we can do to take that next step, I would just say to be more... If Tua doesn't work out, and I do believe this is what they will do, go out and get Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or Deshaun Watson, if they haven't already been traded. And we know those three guys have been obviously rumored to be gone. If you can somehow get one of those guys, I would do it. I think the roster is too good. Listen, it's hard to win a Super Bowl. And in the history of the league, there have only been a few teams that have won multiple of them. Okay? To win one is hard to do. If you have a chance to do it, then you do it. And those guys give the Dolphins a chance to win a Super Bowl the year that they get one of them. Now, again, this is obviously if Tua doesn't work, then they need... I think that's the one thing that I hope that they do if it doesn't work. Sorry, just a little bit of a sneeze there. So yeah, that's about it. This next question comes from Martin. He says, should we be concerned that Waddle is still limping around at OTAs? There seems to be a lack of information about Waddle's injury. I don't think he's limping around. At least I haven't seen anything about that, and or even witnessed it. I think Waddle's fine. I mean, from the stuff that I've seen him catching passes, he looks completely fine to me. I'll have to read up more on that. I didn't find anything like that when I was looking through news. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. This next question comes from Casey Fanatic. He says, are you concerned about our current running back and center positions? It seems like it was ignored during the draft. I do believe Gaskin earned a starting spot and deserves it, but what about the depth? Your thoughts? I mean, the depth is like the least thing I'm worried about. I like Ahmed. I like Gaskin, and like we talked about earlier in the show, it's definitely exaggerated with those guys. But in terms of the center position, I think it's good. I like Dieter and I like Skura, and I think especially with Dieter last year, who really played better. And I've said this so many times, but I'm going to say it again. When he was at the Senior Bowl, Dieter, his best reps were at center, and a lot of people around the league thought that's the position he should play because he's good in pass protection. It was the run game that he kind of left a lot out there to be desired, but he got way, way better at that last year. So I like Dieter if he has to play center. So I like the depth at center, and I like the running back position. This next question comes from SM. He says, Skags, give me 3 surprises, players, or what some call under the radar players for 2021. I'm going with Albert Wilson, the big running back we picked up from the Rams, and Lynn Bowden, if they all make the team. I don't really like Malcolm Brown. I don't like the way he runs the football. I don't know. Dokes and Laird, I could see beating him out. And I know we just signed him to a contract. And you know what, though? He did play in... You know what? I'm starting to connect the dots here. McVay and Shanahan, and Studesville comes from Denver. I don't know if he was there when the Shanahans were there. Someone's going to have to look that up, but maybe that's where he's getting his influence from. But Brown obviously played in that scheme. So maybe that's definitely not a coincidence. So maybe they want him because he's familiar with the offense. I just don't like Malcolm. He's very average, guys. Like, there's nothing... Like, he's not even really that great of a power back. Like, he's had some nice effort plays, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he's a great power player. He's very average. So, other than him knowing the scheme, I really don't know about... I wouldn't really think... I'm not expecting a lot from him. I like Ahmed better. I even like the Cincinnati guy we got better. Dokes, I think. Garrett Dokes, I think is his name. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name right now. Who else am I missing? Oh, Gaskin, obviously Ahmed, and Laird too. So I don't know. That he's other than him knowing the scheme, I don't know. I just don't really like his game all that much. Lynn Bowden's interesting. Man, the offense is so insanely deep because there's a lot of guys that could play. I mean, Albert Wilson, under the radar guys. Hunter Long, I think not a lot of people are talking about him, but he's going to have a great rookie year. Hunter Long is a very good type. Like, he's got a really bright future in this league. I swear to God, every time I watch him play, I'm like, he reminds me of Jason Witten. He's got such good hands. The way he knows how to use his body. You know, he's not the greatest athlete, but he does such a good job of just knowing how to play the game. And he's a good blocker, too. So I think Hunter Long would be the guy that I look to first. Preston Williams, I would say. I know a lot of people are like, it's like, I think they're kind of a little bit lukewarm on him now. Who else, man? Everyone else, I mean, Lynn Bowden, that really kind of depends. I mean, he would be a great scheme fit for the McVay offense. Like, he would be great on those, like, sweeps and stuff. So maybe Bowden. And same thing with Waddle. Waddle would be great for that, too. Man, if that's what they're planning to do, I hope that's true. I hope we're running a New England pass scheme and with the McVay running scheme. Whoo, man. That's just because of how much the talent fits it would be like, oh man. That's nasty, dude. In a good way, not in a bad way, obviously. Yeah, just imagining Waddle take those jet sweeps and even Bowden, man, and maybe we hand it off to Bowden up the middle a couple times. Like that's a sick scheme fit. So yeah, I would say Hunter Long. Bowden would be a good one for especially for running the Rams, McVay, Shanahan type of an offense. And Hunter Long, and especially Hunter Long if we're running that scheme. And if we're running New England's pass scheme with those option routes with Hunter Long, dude. Oh my God, bro. That's going to be fun to watch, dude. This next question comes from SM. He says, more underrated, the firepower we have on offense or the defense? What's more underrated? I would say offense, dude. There's a lot of names there that people don't really know. Like Preston, Bowden, Albert, Hearns. I mean, those are good players that can start on teams. So, definitely the offense, SM. This next question comes from Douglas. And he says, hey Skaggs, I'm happy with the free agency signings of Fuller and the drafting of Waddle. He says, with Preston Williams returning from IR and Devontae Parker being a very good high-point ball catcher, things should be looking good for Tua. Couple that with Gesicki and the drafting of Hunter Long, we look pretty good on offense. However, Preston Williams has never finished a full season, and Devontae Parker is consistently hurt. Fuller has health issues as well, and Waddle is coming off an injury. With that being said, I like to keep both Grant and Wilson and Bowden and not risk Waddle on punt and kick returns. What are your thoughts? I agree with the Waddle thing. I really do agree with that. That's a great question. I agree with the Waddle thing. Your concerns about the depth are... I love that Devontae Parker has looked at himself and he's like, man, I'm playing slow. Because yes, you have, especially last year. I don't know if it was a weight thing or what the heck it was, but he played way too slow last year. And him saying that I want to get faster is like, yes, thank God. So when someone talked to him and was like, dude, you got to get in and out of your breaks quicker. You're too dang talented to not get more separation than you are. I mean, the dude ran a 4.3 at his height. You've got to expand on the other attributes of your game, man. And so maybe someone got his ear or whatever the heck happened. The fact that he's like, okay, I got to get faster and play faster is great. So for him, I don't think he's gonna have that many health issues this year. I think hopefully he plays better because of that. What else? What else am I missing? Oh, Preston. Yeah, Preston's a wild card, but yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's probably why the Dolphins are being very cautious with their receiving core, maybe carrying a little bit more than other people, because not only do they have talent there that still are young and are developing, like Lynn Bowden, but maybe they need someone like that to come in and play. So I could see that, and yeah, I completely agree with the whole Waddle thing. Put Jakeem Grant back there. Jakeem Grant, honest to God, going back and watching games, it's disgusting. Maybe shouldn't say disgusting, but it is very disappointing of how bad he played. Devontae Parker, I know he had like 900 yards. What do he have? 800? No, he did not. He had like 700 yards. He needs to play better, okay? He is too talented to play like that. He's way too talented. He needs to be better. You cannot just catch streaks down the sideline over somebody. How about separate more? Like, he needs to separate more than he had. He's too talented for that. And, Jakeem Grant. He's another guy. It's like, dude, you have so much talent. His hands are bad, and they've always been bad. He plays bad under the bright lights. He's not very physical. He doesn't do enough in the open field as he should. And I think one of the reasons is because of that is because he's constantly he can't stay healthy. He needs to be better. I don't think Jakeem ever will. I don't know what it is about him, dude. And I think one of the downfalls of his career really is he was never strong enough to play slot. And that's a dang shame because he needs to work inside of the field. His ability to get in and out of breaks and utilize the entire field with that ability of his quickness and his speed. The fact that he can't play slot hurts him so much because he just gets swallowed up a lot of the times on the outside. Like, oh, what are you going to do, Jakeem? I might run a comeback route or go down or go route. It's like, well, I'm glad, and then I might catch in one and I might not. It's like he would have been so good on option routes and just really using his quickness inside, and he just never could do that. And it hurt him. It's hurt him now. I mean, he's I don't know. I'm ready to give up on Jakeem. I'm just being honest. Like I'm not literally going to sit here and think, oh, Jakeem's going to do something. I'm not. Maybe on special teams, but as a receiver, I've seen enough to go. He just doesn't have it. And one of the most underrated parts about being a receiver is catching a football. I know that sounds. Everybody's like, that was stupid. It's not. It's true. Like what I'm saying is, the ability to pluck a ball out of the air is a talent. All the great receivers are able to do it, and not just on go routes and 50-50 balls, but in routes, slants, whatever it is, like out routes. The ability to get the ball out of the air if it's contested on a consistent basis is something Jakeem Grant will never have. It's his size, and even when he separates, he doesn't catch the ball cleanly. All of those things really hurt him, and he could be better though. It's like, dude, you have the ability. He has the ability to be a great slot receiver, but he just never. I don't know. And we've heard coaches try him at that position, and it just never works for whatever reason. So, I don't know. He would be great in the McVay scheme of just handing him the ball and letting him work in the open field. Maybe that's something that they're going to use. But there's two other guys on this roster that would be good at that too. You talk about Lynn Bowden and Jalen Waddle, so maybe he's the odd man out in that situation. I don't know. They got to figure out what to do with him. Jakeem frustrates me every time I talk about him. Him and Devontae Parker get on my nerves, and for a lot of different reasons. But I do agree with you, Douglas, that the depth. We should be very wary of keeping guys for insurance policies. This next question comes from SM. He says, "Do you think the players who opted out will be met with criticism from their teammates?" No. I mean. When they opted out, people across the NFL voiced their, like, yeah, we support this, and no, I don't believe that at all. Dude, they still got paid and all that. I think it's fine, dude. This next question comes from Richard. He says, what about the Dolphins bringing in 49ers quarterback, oh my god, Nick Mullins, a number 3 quarterback with a 17-game season? Remember 1993, we lost Marino and then Scott Mitchell, and ended with Steve DeBerg. Oh, man. Oh, dude. Oh, bro. Who remembers David Fales? Anybody remember him? Oh, man. One of the things that I remember speaking of third-string quarterbacks, David Fales, the thing that I remember about him the most is obviously when we played the Bills in Miami. I think it was in Miami, maybe it was on the road, where we got the onside kick. We got an onside kick in both games. I can't remember. No, this might have been on the road. Or this was in Miami. I can't remember. But we had gotten the onside kick, and if we had scored a touchdown, we would have won the game. And when we got the onside kick, obviously we didn't do anything with the ball, but Devontae Parker was wide open on a go route, and he didn't see him. I'll never forget that. I was like, dude, he literally, me or you could have thrown that ball to Devontae. That's how open he was. So you just reminded me of David Vales for whatever reason. But Nick, we have another quarterback on the roster, don't we? We have Tua. Maybe it's Jake Rudock I'm thinking about, but and Jacoby. I don't even want to think about Nick Mullins. But yeah, I guess if you were, and nobody keeps 3 quarterbacks anymore anyway. But yeah, Nick Mullins. No offense to you, Richard, but he is not great. So, and I know you were playing around, but and you did remind me of David Fales. Did we ever win a game with David Fales? I can't remember. I don't think we did. No, I don't think we did. Okay, I'm pretty sure we didn't. This next question comes from Mark. He says, what do you think of our offense? No. This question comes from Mark. He says, what do you think of our offense will do next year? Do you think Tua has a breakout season, or will he regress? Also, he says, will the weapons make him better, or do we not have enough? No, we have plenty. We have too many weapons. We're gonna have to cut a good player. Hopefully, we don't have I don't know. Somehow we're gonna have to figure this out. But we have a lot of guys that can play. So the depth is actually crazy. But so yeah, we definitely have enough on offense. And no, I'm not worried about Tua regressing for all of the reasons we just talked about on the show. I'm very confident Tua. This next question comes from Ahmed. And Ahmed's trying to play games here, and he said, he thinks that I haven't read this question yet, and I already have. Of course, I read these questions before I say them on the video, but he's trying to play a little trick here, and I'm not going to say it with you, Ahmed. But his question is: you may touch on this, but the recent CBS article claiming that Flores wanted Justin Herbert and is not sold on Tua leads me to believe that. This is what he says. First of all, it's kind of disrespectful, Ahmed. A little bit. Just a little bit disrespectful. He says, say it with me. And again, I'm not saying this with him. I have to read this question, but I'm just kind of calling out Ahmed for this. He says, say it with me. Tua was an owner's pick. I guess is what he wants me to say with him. And I'm not going to say it with you because I don't believe it. And just because I read this question, the only reason that story made the news again was because of you, Ahmed. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I'm just calling you out on the games you're trying to play. And I appreciate your question, Ahmed. Anybody who asks questions, you make the show better. So thank you for that. I'm not bagging on you or anything. So thank you, Ahmed, for making the show better, but definitely not gonna say it with you. And I disagree with you, Ahmed. I don't believe that. So and then he goes on to say, do you expect a bigger jump from Tua or the O-line this season? Which is more critical to wins? Tua or the O-line? Tua. It's not even close. Yeah. I don't even know why I had to think about that. But yeah, I just don't want... I'm not being mean. Okay? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying. And this last question comes from SM. He says, if we miss the playoffs again, but sweep the Bills, Jets, and Pats, would you be happy with the season? Well, first of all, if we swept the entire division, we would make the playoffs. So there's that. But you would have to really mess up to not make the playoffs if you sweep your division. That's literally impossible, actually, to sweep your division and not make the playoffs. But no, I would not be happy if we missed the playoffs going into the next year, regardless of who we beat in the regular season. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it this far. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, SM. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Ahmed. Who else made KC, TR3MC? I'm missing someone else. Let me look at the thank you now. Basically, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody who Leaf, Martina, everybody who Richard, everybody who had his questions, and this is something I want to address in the fan Q&A. This guy, his name's Mike. First of all, it's got to be somebody I know, Mike Lewis or Lois. Would you dress up as Touchdown if my father gave you $2,000? I don't know what this is, but if it's definitely someone I know. And whoever it is, let's just gotcha. Okay, it's the joke is at this point a little ridiculous, but thank you for everybody who asks the questions, and again, it makes the show better, and I thank you for everybody for doing that. Anyway, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.